The Prime Minister is in Canberra ahead of an important week in the context of his term in office. Anthony Albanese has called a caucus meeting for this Wednesday. Then on Thursday, he'll deliver an address to the National Press Club, his first major commitment of the year. There's plenty on the Prime Minister's agenda, from addressing inflation and the cost of living to the conflict in the Middle East and that looming US presidential election and what it could mean for our nation. For the first time in 2024, I sat down with Anthony Albanese in his office a short time ago. Prime Minister, thanks very much for your time.
Good morning, Kieran. Good to be with you.
This week you've got your MPs coming back for a special caucus on Wednesday. Can you give our viewers a sense of what's your message going to be to them when they gather here?
Well, it's good that caucus is able to gather without Parliament, without meetings and bells ringing. We do that from time to time, as does the coalition. Of course, the Cabinet and Ministry will meet again this week. We met last week. We've been meeting all of the committees, including the National Security Committee, ERC. We've been working away throughout January. And what we'll be looking at, of course, is the advice that we've received about how we can take pressure off cost of living for people who are doing it tough without putting pressure on inflation.
So you've got that advice now? I know you were going to get it earlier this week.
We're getting it. Okay. We're getting it. So by the time caucus gathers in a couple of days' time, we will have received that and given consideration to that. But we've always said that we'll continue to look for ways to assist people. If we can find ways to put extra dollars in people's pockets, particularly those low and middle income earners who are doing it tough, then we're prepared to do so.
But no one begrudges that. Particularly, we all know there's a lot of people doing it hard right now with inflation higher than you would like. But there are risks involved, aren't there? You're well aware of those risks if you put too much money back into the economy right now.
Well, that's why we've always been responsible, Kieran. One of the things that we did last year was to be determined to produce a budget surplus, the first in 15 years. And what that does, it provides you with the scope to then provide additional assistance. In the way that we've designed the support, $23 billion worth up to this point, our energy price relief plan, cheaper medicine, cheaper childcare, fee-free TAFE. These measures have all been designed to provide assistance, but also by putting that downward pressure on inflation. And I note that the Reserve Bank, when they've made these decisions that they have given weight to the fact, as have the Australian Bureau of Statistics, when they released the latest inflation figures showing the monthly figure down to 4.3%, needs to go further. But they noted that our energy price relief plan, implemented by the government in conjunction with states and territories, Labor and Liberal, only opposed by Peter Dutton, like he has opposed every measure that we've taken, has made a positive difference.
So that's front of mind for you, again, in this next phase of cost of living relief, that it won't be a cash splash?
Well, we'll take whatever advice is given to us, but we'll always look for ways in which we can provide assistance to people. As I said, particularly people who are on low and middle incomes are the ones who are doing it particularly tough. It depends. People are in different financial circumstances, but of course, if you have a mortgage, then the implications of the rising inflation that began, of course, back in March quarter 2022, before we came to office, as the highest inflation figures we've seen for a long period of time. It peaked at 2.1%. And what that meant was that after that, you had interest rates start to rise, and that has placed pressure on family budgets. So that's just one of the measures. Another way, of course, is by making sure that customers, when they get to the checkout in the supermarket, can get things at the cheapest possible price. And that's why we've also asked the ACCC for advice about what further powers or what further action can be taken.
So, and you're determined to move on that? Because you would know as well as I do that when you go to Coles and Woolies now, that many people are hurting there too at the checkout. It's costing a lot more to pay for your groceries.
Well, they are. And what is not understandable for Australians at the checkout is how is it that farmers are getting less for their produce, but that's not flowing through to lower prices. So we want to make sure, whether it be the ACCC, Dr. Craig Emerson's review, the Senate inquiry that's taking place, that we want that downward pressure on prices that people pay at the checkout, because that's what makes an enormous difference to the family budget.
The Coalition's had a crack at you for convening this caucus meeting. Is it worth it? It's going to cost a few $100,000 to bring everyone back. Is it worth it?
Well, that's nonsense, of course. Ministers are here already this week. We were here last week. People will be here for the Australia Day, pre-Australia Day address. I'm doing it at the National Press Club as well on Thursday, and then we have the national commemorations, including the Australian of the Year Awards on Thursday night. I'm hoping that Peter Dutton takes up the opportunity that he didn't last year of actually attending the Australian of the Year Awards on Thursday night and attending the national flag raising ceremony and national citizenship that takes place. That's something I always did as the Labor leader when I was invited to the Australian of the Year Awards. After the first year I went, hang on, this should be bipartisan, and it should be. And the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition should both be present.
There's been a lot of talk about Australia Day, and I know your address at the Press Club comes just before the National Day. Cricket Australia isn't going to call the Gabba tests or make any reference to Australia Day, just treat it as any other day. What's your read on that, and what does Australia Day mean to you?
Oh, look, Australia Day is a day when we reflect on who we are as a nation, where we give thought as well to how we can continue to make this greatest country on earth even greater in the future. We reflect on the fullness of our history. That includes First Nations people, that's 65,000 years of sharing this great continent with the oldest continuous culture on earth. But also, of course, we had January 26th commemorates the founding of the colony in New South Wales. But also in recent times, of course, multicultural Australia as well. It's a citizenship ceremony, as always, at the forefront on Australia Day, and they'll take place around Australia, people pledging their allegiance to Australia as a nation, to our values and our democratic traditions. That is really important, and so for me, I'll attend the national celebrations here. I'll then attend the Australia Day concert later in Sydney.
And what's your reaction to Cricket Australia and its position on the Gabba?
I think we need to stop looking for areas in which we can be outraged. We need to come together. Look, people will go to the cricket, people will celebrate, or for some people, for First Nations people, I respect the views that they have. Someone like Scott Boland has expressed those. They're entitled to express those views. But it's one where I think it's an important day for Australia, and I certainly will be participating in all the events.
Peter Dutton, over the summer, I'm sure a lot of our viewers would have seen it, called for a boycott on Woolies. The Liberals argue it's simply stating that people should shop at places that support their values. Is that fair enough?
Look at the implications of that. The implications of a boycott, if everyone took that up, of Woolworths, is that perhaps Australia's largest employer, 200,000 Australians, potentially lose their jobs. If no one's shopping, there's no jobs. And you would also have to add in Aldi, you'd have to add in Kmart. You end up, I think, in a very negative frame of mind. And what I'm disappointed by, but not surprised by Peter Dutton, is he's always looking to divide, always looking for an us versus them. I want Australians, and when they go to the supermarket, you know what they're concerned about? The price at the checkout, not what's on a shelf or not, due to whatever considerations. And so I think that Peter Dutton needs to explain why it is that he thinks those 200,000 jobs aren't important, and needs to explain as well how long does the boycott that he called for go for? Does it end on January 26? One would think that if it's about what he says it's about, then that's continuous as well. And I value those jobs and economic activity, particularly those in regional Australia. And already, of course, one of the issues we have that we're giving consideration to with competition is we have largely a duopoly in this country. Is Peter Dutton arguing that a monopoly would actually assist that competition and assist that prices and assist people to get goods at the cheapest possible price? I don't think that's the case. I think it's very ill-considered.
How important, I know you're starting the year and you've got your speech at the Press Club and laying out the foundations for what you hope is a successful year on the political, economic front and more broadly. How important is the Dunkley by-election to you to give you a sense of how the government is travelling in the eyes of voters?
All elections are important. By-elections are tough for governments. The traditional swing is larger than the margin in Dunkley. But we have a fantastic candidate in Jodie Bellier. She is out there campaigning. She's someone who's a working mum, who lives in the local community, who's done extraordinary work with a range of community-based organisations and who's in touch with the people of Frankston and other communities around there. And she wants to continue the extraordinary legacy that Peter Murphy had as the local member. Of course, all of us...
Are you confident you can?
All of us. Well, all of us know that by-elections are tough and we don't take anything for granted. It's unfortunate that this is happening due to the tragic loss of Peter Murphy, who passed too early at age just 50 due to cancer recurring. But she showed such extraordinary bravery. And one of the things that Peter Murphy did was recruit Jodie to the Labor Party in advance of this by-election taking place. She was very confident that Jodie Bellier had something to offer her local community.
Your Treasurer has spoken of the importance of doing better in Queensland. Do you think you can win it back, that state? It's been a long time since federal Labor's done well there.
It has, but I think we can do well. If you look at the last election, we reduced many of the margins substantially that were way out. We were targeting seats that required a double-digit swing. That's not the case this time around. I think the government has proven ourselves to be good managers of the economy, producing a surplus, inflation headed downwards. We have produced an unemployment rate. Last year was the first year ever in which the unemployment rate every month had a 3 in front of it. That's a significant achievement. We're a government that's focused on regional economic development in the most regional of states, and we've shown ourselves as well to be there when Queenslanders have needed us to be, tragically because of the natural disasters that have occurred.